What is up, Duelist Arts and Crafts here with your daily dose of Yu-Gi-Oh! GOAT format action. Today's feature match, we've got two mainstays here on the channel, Bubbles123 versus Herney Hog. As always, both players rated in the top 200 spots on the Dueling Book GOAT format rated ladder at the time this match was played. Let's get right into it. Looks like Bubbles won the RPS, choosing to go first. Gonna lead out with a Thunder Dragon, so most likely a classic Chaos strategy coming out here from Bubbles today. Gonna go ahead and just set a couple back row pass with those Thunder Dragons in hand. Herney Hog, last time they were on the channel, I believe they were playing a Panda Burn deck, so a little bit spicy. We'll see if they're continuing to play some spicy or opting for something a little bit more standard. They're gonna fire off a Thunder Dragon of their own, so we might just have a good old Chaos Mirror match here for you all to enjoy today. Thunder Dragon into Upstart, the correct sequencing, so you don't accidentally draw into a second Thunder Dragon before you can use the effect. Into Pot of Greed here, so going up a ton of cards, really strong start. Into just a T-set pass, so both players conserving their cards here. A lot of stuff in hand, but slight tempo advantage here for Herney Hog, first one to play a monster. Bubbles, gonna go Nobleman of Crossout to banish that set. It was a Gravekeeper Spy, so neither player will have services of that this match, both running the full 3 copies here, and those all hitting the banish zone. Bubbles opting for the Jar of Greed to dig a little bit further, smartly using Knock before Jar, similar to the Thunder Dragon Upstart situation like I just talked about. You don't want to Jar, accidentally draw into Gravekeeper Spy, and then knock your opponent's Spy and remove all the other Spy targets from the deck. So knocking first to prevent that, the some chance of that happening is generally correct. Just going to pass, though, so not really any monsters here so far from Bubbles. We know that they've got those 2 Thunder Dragons in hand, but must not have too much action otherwise. Herney Hog, though, first play got dealt with. Do you have additional pressure to apply here? Graceful Charity is quite good when you're rocking the double Thunder Dragon in hand. Going to be able to cash those in pretty early, whereas Bubbles has been unable to do that so far. So, yep, discarding both those Thunder Dragons, finds the second Upstart Goblin to draw even further into the deck as well. And they've just churned through tons of their deck, got the classic Graceful Thunder Dragon combo to, solidify being up an entire real card there. Seeing those Trinity pieces early is quite strong, and Herney Hog hasn't really done too much so far this game, but is definitely in the lead in terms of card advantage so far. Just going to add another set monster to the board here. Bubbles had the knock to deal with the first one, but that makes it less likely they have a knock to deal with the second one, so continuing to apply the pressure here. Bubbles, unable to cash in those Thunder Dragons just yet, so has a bit of a seemingly more bricked hand than Herney Hog here, but not really under too much pressure just yet. Mind Control here in the main deck is quite nice. Main deck Mind Con is pretty good when you're running Gravekeeper Spy, often more of a side deck card, but if you do want to main deck it, you definitely want to make sure you're on the Gravekeeper Spy to get more value out of it. And it's going to steal this set, which is a Magician of Faith, which is quite huge. So Herney Hog making a little bit of a risky play, although you don't generally expect your opponent to have main deck Mind Control in this format, although it is something you see every once in a while. So getting punished here, being a little bit greedy with this early Magician of Faith set, of course trying to grab some of the really good Trinity pieces in Grave. Bubbles does have the choice here between Mind Control and Nobleman of Crossout to grab, but the real victory is just being able to prevent Herney Hog from activating this Faith on their own. You probably just grab the Nobleman here if you're Bubbles, yeah. Less mind games to worry about than if you had grabbed Mind Control, right? Because then you have to play the game of, okay, my opponent knows I have Mind Control, so whenever they set a monster, is it going to be something that Mind Control beats or not? Whereas Knock, you can just kind of freely use it on whenever they set. So it's totally fine. Any follow-up play? Looks like they found a monster. Going to go ahead and set it. So Herney Hog, we have not seen any set monster interaction out of them just yet. But we shall see if they have any. Gonna go ahead and fire off a Nobleman of Crossout of their own, banish a Knight Assailant, so Bubbles potentially baiting some stuff out here by setting kind of a low value flip, but Knight Assailants will get banished from both players. It's like Herney Hog either isn't running any or has them in hand. Most likely they're just not running any though. Faith will start getting in for 300. Nice. First blood going to Ernie Hog, even though you're still down 1,700 life points. It's going to set a back row pass here. Keep this Faith in attack position. You're not under too much threat, so I think that's totally fine. Bubbles is just going to go normal summon Dekoichi, which is interesting. You've already baited a knockout from your opponent. So choosing not to set the Dekoichi is kind of interesting, but if you have like Book of Moon or something in hand, you can definitely use it to protect against knock if you want to. That's just going to go ahead and beat over that Faith, but we've got Book of Moon on the Faith, which is quite strong. That'll flip up. You get the choice between basically Graceful or Pot of Greed, depending on what you have as maybe discard outlets. So Herny Hog, having already used the Thunder Dragons, just going to grab the pot there. Probably doesn't have like a Sinister Serpent or anything in hand, so the pot is a little bit better. But nice use out of the classic Book of Moon Magician of Faith combo to recur a Trinity piece, and Herny Hog slowly pulling away here. A lot of cards in hand, though. Gonna resolve the pot. And then you got a million cards in hand, so gonna have to set a monster, set a back row pass. Dekoichi sticking on the field here for bubbles. Gonna normal summon the Tsukuyomi, so using that to play around Nobleman of Crossout, potentially, or Mind Control if Herny Hog's running that as well. So got the classic Suk loop here, which is now something that Herny Hog has to answer, otherwise he'll just get infinite card advantaged into Oblivion. But we've got Raigeki Break, discarding a Sinister Serpent in hand. Must have drawn that off the Pot of Greed. Otherwise, they would have grabbed that Graceful. But that will pop that Dekoichi, prevent the Dekoichi from getting its effect off. And now the Tsukuyomi is just alone on the board. We see that Nobleman of Crossout, that was known. It's going to go banish it Dekoichi, so both players will not have access to that. And now, notably, that is a lot of Dark Monsters in Herny Hog's deck. Triple Dekoichi, triple Gravekeeper Spy, all banished, so it might be a little bit tough for them, likely playing some Chaos Monsters. But no Night Assailants, apparently, in the deck. And a lot of their Darks already banished, so it might be tough for them to enable Chaos at any point during this game. Whereas Bubbles is fortunate enough to have already had a Dekoichi hit the grave, so Chaos is live for whenever they might want to do that. Just going to go ahead and get in for 1100 here with the Tsukuyomi. Apply a little bit of pressure. It'll get bounced back to the hand in the end phase. But whittling down Herny Hog just a little bit. Herny Hog can go recur this Sinister Serpent. Has tons of cards in hand. It's going to go set a monster pass. So really slow in here. Hope you guys are strapped in and ready to enjoy a most likely Chaos Turbo Mirror. Looks like Bubbles found a Graceful Charity, so able to cash in these Thunder Dragons, and that combo has now been equalized across both players. Yep, discard double Thunder Dragon. Gonna go Upstart to dig a little bit further in, and both players are basically at full life, and they all have sub 20 cards left in their library, or left in their deck, sorry. So this might be a little bit of a deck out situation, potentially, if no one can really get any action going. But really kind of intricate gameplay here. Both players a little bit wary to commit anything to the board. Some flips getting resolved, but no real pressure being applied yet. Hard to apply pressure in this deck with your spies being banished, of course, because that's kind of the main offensive monster in the deck outside of your Chaos guys. Bubbles, though, lots of cards in hand after resolving that Graceful. Just going to go set a back row pass, avoiding discarding for hand. Herny Hog has a similar full grip. Will you be able to resolve a flip effect monster? No, we're going to go set a monster next to the one that did not flip up. So you got to guess that's probably that known Sangan in hand. If you're Herny Hog. Or, yeah, known Sinister Serpent is probably the set monster, right? Because we knew he had that in hand, and it's not going to flip up, so it's probably the only card in the deck that doesn't flip up there. Bubbles is just going to slam down Blackluster Soldier, thinking that, okay, this other set monster might actually be something real, so you probably want to deal with it. Lucky enough to have the Dekoichi engraved to get the Dark, whereas Herny Hog does not have that luxury. So first Chaos Monster of the game hitting the board here. Gonna use it to banish the new set, which was a Tsukuyomi. A little bit interesting. But Herny Hog just kind of baiting things out, and you had to discard from hand size if you didn't put anything on the board, so might as well use the Suk. Although it will just get run into BLS, and that is unfortunately another Dark Monster getting banished. So Hernihog just might be completely shut out of Chaos, really. Unless they're able to get like a Chaos Sorcerer engrave or something. Ooh, and now we finally get the first Trap Dust Shoot resolution of the game here. We'll see what both players are holding on into the hands. A lot of good stuff. Ooh, Bubbles was very much stuck on a lot of Chaos here. No Dark Engrave since they use their Dekoichi, but they do have BLS on board and a Trap Dust Shoot to potentially protect it. Rest of the hand, we got double Sork, a Dekoichi. That must have been in hand when it got knocked. And then that known Tsukuyomi as well as a Mirror Force. And Bubbles will see in their opponent's hand a Sork that's dead, a Tribe Infecting Virus, which is an out to the BLS, so you're probably just going to strip that one out. And then a bunch of stuff that does not answer Blackluster Soldier, most importantly. So you're going to rip out the Tribe, and then hope your BLS can stick around. And then you know for sure that this... Oh, we can see the stats, of course, but you know for sure that this set monster is Sinister Serpent. So that will probably just end up getting banished by the BLS. Yeah. So rip out that Tribe. BLS will live and get to plus again. And you know you have to play around Torrential. Oh, there is Book of Moon plus Knock plays here for Hernihog, which is going to go negative to deal with this BLS, but is definitely an option. We'll see if they choose to make that play, because otherwise they're just going to get plussed against by this BLS anyway. Going to lead out with the Heavy Storm here. So pro set Heavy from Hernihog, trying to get a little bit of advantage here. Bubbles choosing or deciding if they want to chain anything. Opting to let the Wind Blast just hit the grave. Could have chained that to bounce the Serpent, I guess, which doesn't really seem that strong. And we know he doesn't have, or we know Bubbles doesn't have any really good discard outlets in their hand at the moment. So yeah, Heavy getting the plus here, popping 2 back row, even despite one of them being chainable, just because it was not a very advantageous card to use at this moment. And now Hernihog could go for that Book of Moon plus Knock play if they want. Yeah, we're just going to see that used. Yep. And then we're going to flip Summon Serpent and start attacking in here just to apply some pressure. A little bit interesting, but you got to do something, I guess. And now Hernihog had to use a lot of cards to deal with this BLS that was already able to plus by banishing that Tsukuyomi. Your opponent has full knowledge of what you got as well. The set, you know, one of them's probably that MST. You've got that dead Chaos Sorcerer in hand, so you don't really have too much going for you at the moment. I don't think Sinister kills before your opponent gets decked out, but maybe it does. I don't feel like doing that math. Now, lucky for Hernihog, their opponent is off of Chaos at the moment, having banished their only Dark to use that BLS. And we saw there's double Sork in hand, so Bubbles a little bit awkward of a draw here as well. So we're kind of in top deck mode for both players, trying to draw something to get them out of their dead hands. You got to think whoever gets a Dark Engrave first will probably be in a solid advantage here. Bubbles here draws for turn. Just going to go set a monster, set a couple back row pass. Definitely could be that Dekoichi we saw in hand before, would be a pretty standard play. We're going to end-phased MST. Bubbles setting 2 back row here. Had to know the MST was coming most likely, so we'll see if what gets hit. Hits the Mirror Force there. A little bit unfortunate for Bubbles. Likely setting whatever the other card was in order to protect that Mirror Force, you would have to guess. And I think the other back row here is probably Jar of Greed from Hernihog as well. We're going to draw for turn. It's going to set a back row, activate that Jar of Greed, playing around Dust Shoot by setting first so that they never go up to 4 cards in hand. Nice sequencing there. But they're going to dig a little bit further into the deck. Delinquent Duo is pretty nice. So the board state that was for many turns clogged up with tons of monsters. That BLS hitting the board really opened the floodgates, forced people to kind of use their cards to answer things. And now with the Duo hitting, things are going to get simplified very, very quickly. We went from both players having like just playing cards to avoid discarding to the end phase to like both players in near top deck mode in the span of a couple turns. So kind of both players positioning over the first several turns of the game, but now someone's put the pedal to the metal and things are starting to like resolve and a clear winner will emerge most likely soon. So Duo hits a Chaos Sorcerer, which if you're Hernihog, obviously didn't know what's in their hand, but that's actually pretty nice for Bubbles. They got a free Dark Engrave And is this going to be enough for Bubbles to take the game? We know they have another Sork in hand, so they have to choose about whether they want to keep that now live Sork or discard, or keep whatever the other card was. Going to discard that Tsukuyomi, which I think is probably fair. I guess they had to make the choice between establishing the Souk loop with the Dekoichi or having this Chaos Sorcerer in their hand be live. I think you probably would rather have the Sork just because it's good. You could banish the Serpent. Seems pretty nice. So opting to keep the Sorcerer there. We'll see if it's the correct call, because the Souk loop is, of course, pretty strong. But Bubbles going for the more aggressive play. We're going to get End Phase MST on that back row, which was the known Torrential Tribute as well. So clearing the way for this Sork to hit the board. They have Dekoichi flip as well. Things have simplified really down, and Bubbles, I think, has found themselves in a winning position when all is said and done. We can go flip up the Dekoichi, draw a card, go for Chaos Sorcerer, banish the Serpent. That duo kind of being not so good for Herney Hog, because it enabled the opponent's hand. Serp's going to get banished. You can get in for 14 with this Dekoichi. And now you've got a pretty formidable board here that Herney Hog has to deal with only 2 cards in hand. Well, 3 cards in hand after the draw. He's going to have to set a couple back row pass, though. No monsters. No Chaos Live, right? We know that... Oh, I guess we know the card in hand is that Dead Sorcerer, which, as I predicted a while ago, might just be dead all game, because look at how many Darks have been banished for them so far this game. Dang. Like I said, whoever would get a Dark and Grave first was going to be in a really good position, and I think that might be what tipped the scales here in Bubbles' favor. Upstart Goblin just to draw a little bit further. Just have to do a little bit of math there to see if it's worth adding 1,000 life points to the opponent's hand, or to the opponent's total, when you're the one trying to kill them relatively quickly. But seems to be worth it. They draw into a Breaker, the Magical Warrior. Totally safe, because you know your opponent just lost their Torrential Tribute. So Breaker's going to try and pop one of the sets. It's just a Jar of Greed, though, so you do have to worry about potential Mirror Force here if you're Bubbles, which would be quite backbreaking. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw defense position Chaos Sorcerer just to play around that, if you want to be super safe, and that's what we're going to see. So we're going to hit in for 3k, still a solid clock. No Mirror Force coming out from Herney Hog. Might, of course, not even have it, but Bubbles hedging their bets here. Drop their opponent 35. Pass with no back row, so Herney Hog, something like a Snatch Steal on the Sork could be really strong. Just going to set a monster pass. Chaos Sorcerer, unlike BLS, cannot banish face-down monsters, so could be potentially good to deal with this, although, well, I guess it could be a Magician of Faith, which would be really nice to resolve, potentially. Bubbles here, let's see. Just going to go attacking with this Dekoichi. Hits that Magician of Faith, so Herney Hog, lots of good stuff here to grab. Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity, probably what we're going to see. Gonna grab that pot here. So has the opportunity to resolve 3 pots in a single game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And still might not win. You don't see that every day, but, you know, Turbo's a pretty good deck. And being able to play Chaos Monsters, right? I think that's the real difference maker this round so far has been the fact that Bubbles has been able to resolve 2 Chaos Monsters to Herney Hog 0. Breaker will be able to get in for 16 to apply a little bit more pressure, and you got to think this is kind of a last stand moment here for Herney Hog. Has to resolve this spot, has to find something good here. Really want to dig for like a Snatch Steal. Has another set monster to worry about, but you're probably fine with that. Fire off that pot, dig a little bit further. Snatch Steal on the Sork is huge. Do you have enough time to turn this game around? We're just going to banish itself. The super conservative play obviously could start whittling away at the opponent's board turn after turn with the Sorcerer. But I guess the threat is Snatch Steal is going to keep granting your opponent 1,000 life a turn if you keep the Sorcerer on board. So, and you only have 6 cards left in deck. So you probably might not be able to kill them quick enough without decking yourself out. And so we might see the fabled triple pot game that you actually lose here, because Herney Hog not able to make any super strong plays here. Gonna add another back row, so definitely found some good stuff off of that pot. But Bubble still has a pretty formidable board, and their opponent's only at 1,900 life. Ring of Destruction still unused here as well. Just gonna go set a monster. We're gonna go Magician of Faith. Setting the monster first, once again to play around Trap Dust Shoot. What do you grab here? Probably the Graceful Charity, I would guess. You could grab MST to be like super conservative. You really just want to dig for Heavy Storm, I think is probably the play here with this Graceful. Okay, so Graceful resolves. We're going to discard Serpent to get the plus and a dead Snatch Steal. Show me the Heavy Storm. Yeah, there it is. So correctly digging for the best card. Ernie Hug has to Raigeki break to pitch the Sork that's been dead in their hand for basically all game. Finally gets a Dark Engrave, but might be too little too late. And let's see what we're gonna pop that breaker just to deal with the biggest threat on Ernie Hug's board or on Bubbles' board, which is a little bit unfortunate, but you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, not choosing not to use the ring because otherwise they would be put closer to death, of course, and hitting that mirror force as well. So yeah, Bubbles correctly digging for that Heavy Storm finds it, and now Ernie Hug, you're down to just one card in hand. You're at 1900 life points, and it's looking like GG here. Dark Engrave here as well for Bubbles. They're probably not on the third copy of Chaos Sorcerer, but if they are, it could be game here. Pot of Greed to dig a little bit further, though. Delinquent Duo just to rip out the last card. You got plenty of life, so why not? Yep, GG. Yeah, and Ernie Hug correctly identifying that when all of their darks got banished, it was going to become really, really tough to win the game. And yeah, like I said, despite resolving triple pot, if you can't play the cards that you draw off of it, it doesn't really matter. And Bubbles able to be the one to resolve their Chaos Monsters, and that was enough to take game one here. And man, what a marathon game. Going to game two. Ernie Hug will be able to go first. Going to lead out with Thunder Dragon, set a back row pass turn. So not the strongest start, but resolving Thunder Dragon turn one is pretty nice. And we're going to see that Trap Dust Shoot here. Bubbles is rocking not the best hand. Double Thunder Dragon in hand. Not what you want to see, especially now that Ernie Hug knows about it. And then you see Faith, Sook, Sork, and Upstart Goblin. I think you probably just send back the Magician of Faith, because then Bubbles' hand is like completely bricked, right? Tsukiyomi can't do anything. They're just gonna have to try and snag something off of the Upstart. Yeah, definitely send back that Faith, and then Bubbles is not really doing anything too hot here. Just gonna lead out with that Thunder Dragon, grab the remaining copy, but now you still have 2 dead Thunder Dragons in hand. And just gotta play that Upstart, trying to dig into some action. We'll see what they find. Just gonna pass there. Yeah, so pretty bricked here thanks to this Trap Dust Shoot, and Ernie Hug has full information knowing that their opponent really has nothing going on. See if they have any pressure to apply to the board. They see the coast is clear with the opponent's bricked up hand, and we're just going to go Tribe Infecting Virus in 1600 Vanilla Monster Beatdown mode, start applying some pressure. This is a real clock. 1600 is a very relevant stat line in the Turbo Mirror. There aren't a lot of monsters that can beat over this that Turbo plays outside of like Chaos Sorcerer or a breaker that keeps a token on, which is pretty uncommon. I'm going to set a back row here to protect the tribe, couple back row. But starting to get aggressive here, you want to apply pressure when you know your opponent doesn't really have much going on, so correctly identifying that this is the right time to get aggro. We got Trap Dust Shoot here to see the couple new cards that Bubbles drew. Looks like they drew into another Dead Chaos Sorcerer and Nobleman of Crossout. So you probably send back the Tsukiyomi here, because that's like the one card that they can play to deal with this tribe. Yeah, and I guess you knew about the Sook from last turn. So summoning the Tribe Infecting Virus, which can of course get killed by Tsukiyomi, is a little bit risky, but not if you know you have Trap Dust Shoot number 2 to just send it back. So we're going to see this Sook sent back. Bubbles is going to be super far behind, and they just have absolutely no place here. And now you even know about the knock to play around. So really solid start here with Ernie Hug for Ernie Hug. And this tribe is just going to keep beating in for 1600 a turn. Got normal summon to Koichi here, not even setting it. Well, yeah, because you know about Nobleman of Crossout, so that's totally fine. Just maximum clock here. Love the normal summon to Koichi as just a 1400 vanilla beater. Get in for 3k a turn here. And it's just a chaos beatdown here coming in from Ernie Hug. Just going to pass here. Hope Bubbles doesn't draw any action. They draw Tribe Infecting Virus of their own, which is pretty nice. And it's a good way to get darks in hand to unbrick your board, assuming it's allowed to stick around. So that was actually quite a solid draw there. Yeah, you can use Tribe Effect, discarding the Sorcerer to deal with the Koichi, but more importantly, it gets you a Dark Engrave to summon that other Sorcerer we know in hand, which can then deal with this Tribe Infecting Virus. So Bubbles finding a way to unbrick their hand with this Tribe top deck. And now Hurny Hog, you knocked your opponent down to 3,400, but you just got a lot of card advantage kind of ripped away from you. And Bubbles kind of in the ascendancy here. 1,600 damage here coming into Hurny Hog. Gonna pass the turn with a pretty nice board. But no back row here to protect anything, of course. The draw for turn was Tribe. We know the hand is Thunder Dragon, Nobleman of Crossout. Hurny Hog, what you got here? Chaos of their own. Koichi hitting the grave was the dark that they needed. So I'm going to summon their own Sork. Sork banish the opponent's Sork. And then we can go Raigeki Break, discard one of those Thunder Dragons in hand to deal with the Tribe in a pretty even trade. Set it back right here to protect your Sork. And yeah, you answered Bubbles' one play. They had a good top deck to kind of unstuck their hand temporarily. But now you need another similar draw here. Or otherwise you're just going to die to this Sork soon. They drew Mind Con, which is a way to deal with that Sork. Okay. Yeah, just going to use its effect to banish itself. One of the benefits of running Mind Con is it's not just here to deal with set monsters. It can also force chaos monsters to banish themselves or tribes to blow themselves up, that sort of thing. So top deck there just to kind of deal with a little bit of pressure, but still we know the hand is super bricked. So if Hurny Hog can apply a little bit more pressure here, things will look good. Sork was their second dark monster, so it getting banished is pretty good for Bubbles because now they don't have Hurny Hog does not have Chaos live again. Just gonna go ahead and do we have a play? Normal summon Magician of Faith to just this is a 12 turn clock. I mean it ain't nothing. And if you have Book of Moon or something, this is totally fine. Plays around knock. If you got Tsukuyomi, totally fine. Yeah, so just get in for 300, but you got to assume they probably have Book or Suk to get more value out of this Faith. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't play it. Bubbles here. What did we draw for turn? It's going to be Sangan. They've had a pretty solid string of top decks here. Top deck Tribe to unbrick the hand. Top deck Mind Control to deal with the Sork. Top deck Sangan to pressure this Magician of Faith is pretty nice. And, of course, difficult for Hurny Hog to deal with when they're going for this more aggro plan. But I have to assume there's Book of Moon set here from Hurny Hog, or they just have Suk in hand. Yeah, so Sangan just getting a nice little plus there for Bubbles. Beating over the Faith. Suk probably in hand for Hurny Hog, but just a little bit too slow to deal with the top deck Sangan. So Bubbles sort of bailed out by their top deck again. I'm not going to say like these aren't like amazing top decks, but they are all things that interact with what Hurny Hog is trying to do. Which is better than what their current hand had. So Sangan here, pretty solid draw. Start applying some pressure. Hurny Hog, what can you do? Delinquent Duo here is interesting. I guess it would be nice if you can hit that Nobleman of Crossout to clear your way for future set monsters, or ripping out Double Thunder Dragon prevents Sangan from getting tribute summoned next turn and then getting the search off, and then Bubbles would have like a real threat on board. So we'll see what the duo hits. It hits the Nobleman of Crossout, so Thunder Dragon's going to hit the grave as well. But Bubbles will still have Sangan Tribute for the second Thunder Dragon as a play next turn if they so choose. Hurny Hog's still not on Chaos, no Darks in Grave. Just going to pass there. And I would not be surprised to see that Tribute for Thunder Dragon play coming through. Now we're just going to go attack here with Sangan. Saying, okay, no, you just deal with my Sangan first. Set a back row here for Bubbles. And suddenly, Hurny Hog on the back foot. I'm going to set a back row pass. Two pretty low impact delinquent duos out of Hurny Hog so far this match. That's just how she rolls sometimes. Turbo, of course, is quite a good hand. It's one of the best decks in the format at playing against duo because it just plays a lot of stuff that you don't mind hitting the grave. Last game, of course, pretty significant in that it allowed Bubbles to get a Dark Engrave to activate his Chaos Sorcerer, which ended up being the deal breaker in that one. But the Sangan is sticking around, applying pressure. Hurny Hog down to 4,100. Your life point advantage that you secured pretty early on in the game is now basically entirely vanished. And Bubbles might have started out with a little bit of a bricky hand, but Hurny Hog now has descended into the same sort of issue. Yeah, we know there's one Thunder Dragon in hand, which isn't getting really any use. So, yeah, similar sort of bricked up Thunder Dragon do nothing hands for both players at the moment. Bubble sets a monster pass. Got to be worried about that if you're Herney Hog. Faith is okay. There's some decent stuff to grab here, but Spy would be pretty good for Bubbles for sure. Herney Hog, we've got Mind Control on the set monster. Okay. It is that Gravekeeper Spy, so that will likely come through. Flip summon from Herney Hog. Summon out another copy of it from their own deck. Summoning it in attack position, so maybe looking to deal with this Sangan and just start applying as much pressure as possible. Although this second Spy is going to end up going back to Bubbles' side of the field next turn, and he can just switch it, or they can just switch it to defense position if they want to. But yeah, Spy will beat over Sangan, so that's 200 damage to Bubbles. Prevents Tribute Summon for Thunder Dragon plays, but could search up something potentially good here. A lot of options here if you're Bubbles. You got Serpent, maybe. You've got Tsukuyomi. You've got Magician of Faith. You've got another Spy. Gonna go grab that Tsukuyomi. I guess the idea being that you can loop your own Spy to make sure its effect goes off and grab more Spies from deck. That seems pretty strong. Bubbles has Tsukuyomi of their own, though, to do the same thing. So it looks like both players are going to end up with Spy walls on both sides of the board here. So this early aggression from both players will probably come to a nice halt soon. Tribe Infecting Virus having already been used by one player, right? Truly? Oh yeah, Tribe is banished here. How did that happen? Oh yes, Sork banished the Tribe, right? Yeah, so Tribe being used from one player means that these Spies are more likely to stick around. Bubbles, of course. Oh no, yeah, Tribe used from both players, of course. Yeah, so these Spies are likely going to stick around for a long time until someone can resolve a Chaos Monster. Bubbles here, we've got Tsukuyomi to go for the same play here. Ooh, Raigeki Break on the Spy, though, discarding that last remaining Thunder Dragon. To deal with that Spy, so Herney Hog, their Spy, stands alone here on the board for the time being, but there is Chaos Life here for Bubbles, potentially. It's going to set a back row and turn. Tsukuyomi gets bounced. And Herney Hog, let's see this Spy. Flip it up. Summon out the second one in attack position, because this is a 2-turn clock. And we'll see, is there a Mirror Force out of Bubbles? No, just Torrential Tribute. Nice, clean way of dealing with the Spies. Not the best card in the mirror, but it is a tidy way to deal with the Spies like we saw here. And when you're under so much pressure, definitely getting some good value out of it. And yeah, so I was worried about Spies just completely bogging down the rest of this game. But both players having outs to them in the form of Raigeki Break and Torrential Tribute, preventing the slog that was impending. That does notably get a Dark Engrave, though, thanks to this Torrential Tribute for Herney Hog. And they will finally be able to summon... Let's see, Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. This is lethal damage. Mirror Force not being used, but you probably don't play around it here. Just going to get in for 3k. Ooh, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Discarding one of those Thunder Dragons from Bubbles. The last one in hand. Yeah, so we knew the hand was Thunder Dragon Tsukuyomi. So that's going to return BLS to the top of their opponent's deck. But it is just going to be live next turn with that second Spy Engrave. So Spy getting a ton of value here, despite it just being killed by a Torrential Tribute, because the double Dark Engrave actually ended up being very, very significant. But you got to make this play for Bubbles to just delay your demise one more turn. You got to find an out to this BLS. Otherwise, you're just going to set Tsukuyomi and have it get banished by the BLS. What's the play? T-set pass. So we got set Tsukuyomi, an unknown back row. Herney Hog's going to top deck a live BLS. What's the play? Just going to go slam down this BLS, probably banish that Tsuk. Yeah, use their priority. Banish it. Ooh, and then Tsukuyomi to set down, player on Mirror Force, get in for 1100 damage. Knock him down to 18. Now you're passing with potential lethal on board with Flip Summon BLS, with no monsters here for Bubbles. Let's see. So they drew another monster to set, so we could just see the same thing. No Torrential for Herney Hog to worry about, so we can see Flip Summon BLS, banish the set monster, summon Tsukuyomi, flip BLS face down again, and attack in for 1100 once more. This is a 2-turn clock. And we'll probably just see that exact play. Was it Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer? Yeah, and we see the Tsuk come in for 1100. MST to deal with the back row, which was Mirror Force. And you got 1 turn to do something here if you're Bubbles. Card Destruction, GG. Okay, and we're going to go to game 3 here. Pretty intricate gameplay here. Herney Hog off to a really strong start with the Trap Dust Shoot in that game, seeing that Bubbles just had really no action going for them, and applying a lot of pressure really early on with the Tribe Infecting Virus and the Dekoichi. Bubbles having a nice series of top decks to kind of stabilize, apply some pressure themselves, but Herney Hog able to close that game out thanks to Blackluster Soldier, quite a strong card. Game 3, though, Bubbles will be able to go first. Just going to lead out with a set monster pass, so no Trinity here. Herney Hog has an opportunity to kind of get off to a really strong early start here, depending on what's in their opening hand. They're going to lead out with Nobleman of Crossout on the set monster, which was a Sangan, so not going to have to worry about that level 3 critter here. But no cards banished from either player's decks because it's not a flip monster. Followed with Graceful Charity, knocking first, because I guess they didn't want it to draw into any additional, like maybe Gravekeeper Spies or anything like that. Charity will go ahead and discard a Sinister Serpent and a Zombira the Dark. So citing that in most likely because they saw Bubbles was on Kaiku. Zombira doing a good job of walling those out, beating over them, and getting the nice little plus in card advantage through the Graceful plus Sinister combo. So off to a solid start here for Herney Hog. They're going to just set a monster as well, but you're up in card advantage already, and you've kind of stolen back the tempo thanks to that Nobleman of Crossout. So Bubbles, a little bit on the back foot here, but not out of it yet. Nobleman of Crossout of their own to deal with the set. It is Sangan. So neither player going to get access to that little guy for the remainder of this match. Just going to pass there. So no monster here for Bubbles. Sangan must have been their only one, which is a little bit worrying, right? If Sangan was your only play, you might want to just summon it in case it gets knocked, and then you just don't have anything to do. But choosing to set it, risking the knock, and it came through, and now you just have no plays. A little bit unfortunate. Herney Hog has an opportunity to apply some pressure here. Going to recur that Sinister Serpent that was discarded last turn with the Graceful Charity. Pot of Greed here too, so double Trinity in the first couple turns. Pretty nice for Herney Hog. Off to a solid early lead with the better draws. Just going to set a monster pass, continue to apply pressure. Could be something like Magician of Faith, which would be absolutely devastating with the known Sinister Serpent in hand. Bubbles, do you have a play here? Second Nobleman of Crossout to deal with the set. It was a Gravekeeper Spy, so both players not going to be able to use that this match. Ooh, Bubbles must have a Spy in hand, though. We knew they were running 3 from game 1. So choosing not to set it last turn is a little bit interesting. And now, assuming you didn't just side out a third one, which would be kind of weird, you just have basically a dead Spy in hand. But I guess in this matchup you can use it to maybe bait out other knocks and mind cons at least, so it's not completely dead. But potentially wishing that they would have just set it before knocking their opponents. Well, if you have the Graceful Charity to discard the Dead Spy, I guess that's totally fine. Yeah, so Charity resolving here. Going to discard Sinister and a Tsukuyomi. Okay, so getting a Dark Engrave, which has been very relevant this match, so not too bad. And has their own Graceful plus Sinister combo to generate a little bit of card advantage of their own. So pretty even match so far here. Ooh, and we're going to get Normal Summon Kaiku, which is quite strong into an empty board. Going to hit in for 1800. Herney Hog's Zombira will get banished. The Floodgate effect from Kaiku will stick. And Herney Hog under a little bit of pressure here, thanks to this Kaiku. Back row hitter protected as well. Herney Hog, maybe hoping you still have that Zombira kicking around to deal with this Kaiku. A little bit unfortunate. But do you have an answer here? Let's see, we've got Tribe Infecting Virus. That's one way to deal with the Kaiku. Going to use Priority, discard that Serpent, kill the Kaiku for free. And now Tribe will get in for 1600. Bubble says okay. They get dropped to 64. So getting a lot of value out of the Sinister Serpent here. That's +2 thanks to it so far in combo with the Charity and then the Tribe. And Herney Hog just making some good plays, continuing to solidify their advantage and apply a little bit of pressure. Set a back row here as well to protect the Tribe. Bubbles can recur their own Sinister Serpent, but then that will just get responded to by a Trap Dust Shoot. So we'll see what Bubbles has in hand beside that Serp. They've got a tribe of their own. They've got a Knight Assailant without any flips engrave to do anything with. They've got a Phoenix Wing Windblast and a Dead Blackluster Soldier with no lights engrave. So Herney Hog, not an amazing hand from their opponent. I guess you could probably just send back. I mean, Tribe's kind of annoying. I guess it really depends on what's in your hand here. I could see arguments for anyone except for really the BLS, probably. Although, if you don't have an out to BLS, your opponent's just a top deck Thunder Dragon away from having it live. So I can even see sending back BLS. So Herney Hog, lots of options here. Really depends on what's in the hand, so I'm not going to try and parse out what you should grab. Gonna send back the Tribe, which is, I think, the most aggressive option, most likely. Because now it's kind of hard to deal with your own Tribe unless they just set Assailant into it, which could be easily dealt with. But Tribe is going to get shuffled back. Bubbles is going to set a monster pass. Could either be the Knight Assailant or the Sinister Serpent. Herney Hog has to kind of weigh each of those equally in their mind. Choosing not to set the Wind Blast might be... Well, so that's actually a lot of information given by not setting the Wind Blast, potentially. It makes this set a lot more likely to be an unchainable, right? Because otherwise they might be a little bit wary about setting to back row that could just die to Heavy Storm. And if they're not setting discarding Knight Assailant, like Knight Assailant is not a real discard option here for Bubbles because there's no targets engraved. So you would much rather have the Serpent to discard to the Wind Blast. So the fact that they did not set Wind Blast means that it's more likely that the set monster is the Sinister Serpent, is kind of what I'm getting at here. So Herney Hog, I think, probably actually just learned a lot about this based on Bubbles not setting that Wind Blast. We'll see if that's exploitable in any way, though. Herney Hog going to grab that Serpent. We're going to get normal summon Breaker. Yeah, so got to think this is probably an unchainable, right? Breaker going to pop it. It is a Mirror Force. Okay. See, I'm cooking a little bit. I had some good thoughts. And now you're pretty confident that this is set Sinister Serpent, I would say. Tribe's going to attack into it. It is that Serpent. Okay. So I know what I'm talking about sometimes, guys. Gonna go get in for 1600 with that Breaker. And then Herney Hog's going to set that back row pass. Yeah, so, if there was Wind Blast to worry about, if you thought that this was a chainable, if you thought it was set Knight Assailant, you might go for a different play than normal Breaker, pop the back row, attack in. But whether Herney Hog or not read that or not, I think this ends up being a really solid play because it kind of plays around, it hedges into the information that you could glean from the play that Bubbles just made. And now this is a lot of damage potentially every turn coming out of Herney Hog. Bubbles might just have to set their Knight Assailant just to kind of deal with the pressure here. Might not have the luxury of waiting to find a good discard outlet for it, or a good target for it as a discard outlet. So is this Serpent here to block a little bit of damage every turn and also can use that as fodder for the Wind Blast, but not that strong into this board particularly because if you send back Tribe, they can just draw it and normal summon it again. And if you send back Breaker, you really don't want to do that because then they get the token again, right? But Bubbles here drew into Snatch Steal, so we're going to snatch the Tribe. Potentially Sinister effect to pop the Breaker and then swing the pressure back in their favor. Herney Hog does have a back row here, though. Going to use Raigeki Break, discarding their Sinister. Tons of value off of this card for both players this game, honestly. Such an insane card in the format. And Break is going to pop that Snatch Steal. The hand is what? Knight Assailant, Sinister, a dead BLS, and a Wind Blast. So Bubbles, you might just have to set this Knight Assailant. Set the Wind Blast and have the Serpent in hand to maybe bounce something just to relieve pressure, perhaps. Nobleman of Crossout would be insane. Knight Assailant or Mind Control would be insane. Yeah, Herney Hog in a really solid position here after answering that Snatch Steal. Gonna grab that Sinister for turn. Let's see, what's the play? Normal summon Dekoichi, just for maximum pressure. Yeah, I dare you to Wind Blast that one too. That's one of those things about with Wind Blast, sometimes you just don't have good targets. It's really good if your opponent's setting monsters, because then it's a really big tempo swing. But if it's stuff that they can just draw and then normal summon again, and stuff with enter the battlefield effects like Breaker, Wind Blast just, you would rather this be a Raigeki break in this scenario. Almost, all the time. So Tribe is going to go ahead and attack that set. It is that Night of Silence, so just using it to deal with some pressure. That'll pop the Dekoichi, so choosing the smaller of the two other targets. But Dekoichi, of course, if there's Tsukiyomi and Hen from Herny Hog, could start being really annoying. So making a little bit more of a conservative play there. And then Breaker will stick around to hit them for 16. Set a couple back row as well here. Bubbles here. Really needs top deck Thunder Dragon. 3 in the deck, so not super unlikely. But this BLS just rotting in hand. And they just don't really have too much going for them otherwise. Let's see what we got. We're chilling in Standby Phase, so wants to do the cool combo where you discard Trap in Standby Phase, discarding Serpent, and then you're still in Standby Phase, so you can re-grab the Serpent, so it's like you never used it. So Wind Blast bounced the Breaker, so it will get the enter the battlefield effect next turn. We'll see what Bubbles drew for a turn that makes this worth it. Do we have the Thunder Dragon? We're going to set a monster, set a back row pass. So you got to assume this back row is a chainable. Otherwise, you're not going to set it into top deck Breaker, right? And then the set monster has to be Sinister Serpent as well. So Bubbles drew some sort of chainable back row for turn, most likely. Sucks if it's something like Jar of Greed, right? Just going to draw a Breaker for turn for Herny Hog. It's going to go summon Sinister Serpent, attack in there, saying, okay, you probably set a chainable into the Breaker, so I'm not going to play this game. Yeah, playing around Torrential Tribute here by summoning the Sinister Serpent, because if they Torrential it, it's just a 1-for-1 trade with the Tribe, which you're totally fine with, and then you have the Breaker in hand that you would rather keep anyway. So really nice play here out of Herny Hog with the normal summon Sinister Serpent. And that Sinister nicely has enough attack to kill a defense position Sinister. And so this will clear the way for Tribe to get in for 16 again. Bubbles drops down to 16, and now Lethal on board here for Herny Hog. Playing this game really, really well. And Bubbles here, you're going to grab the Sinister. Still out of Dust Shoot range, which is nice. Still don't know what the set card is. Just going to normal summon. Yeah, so it was Torrential, so Herny Hog really smartly playing around Torrential last turn by not normal summoning the Breaker. Man, what a good play. That's amazing. That's just so good. And then Torrential, popping everything. Yep. Nice. And then set a back row pass. Herny Hog saying don't play Torrential against Turbo. Totally fine. And then Herny Hog is going to go just with a million cards in hand. We got Heavy Storm to clear the back row. Was just a trap Dust Shoot. And then the Breaker normal summon for game. And there you have it. 2 games to 1 in a super intricate, really interesting Chaos Turbo mirror. Herny Hog takes it down against Bubbles. Really cool plays by both players. Herny Hog losing game 1 because they just could never get a Dark Engrave. Never able to summon their Chaos monsters. Despite resolving 3 Pot of Greeds, they lost. Because Bubbles was able to actually get Dark's Engrave to fuel their Chaos monsters. Summoned a BLS and a Chaos Sorcerer where Herny Hog was unable to do anything. But then games 2 and 3 really well played by Herny Hog. Getting super aggressive in game 2 when they knew their opponent was bricked. And then whittling them down to pretty low life points, finishing them off with the BLS later on. And then this game 3 just really playing super well around using the information gained by Trap Dust Shoot. Had some dicey moments, getting hit with Kaikus, Snatch Shield potentially coming down, stuff like that. But yeah, just really masterfully playing around all the stuff that Bubbles could potentially have in certain scenarios. And just closing it out really nicely. And there you have it. 2 games to 1 to Herny Hog in a really cool Chaos Turbo mirror. Hope you all enjoyed this one. I'll catch you guys next time.